Close enough.
We're going to do a segment we haven't actually done since probably the beginning of the season, which is Google Translate Corner. Because, unfortunately, neither of us speak German. And
Unfortunately, I think I'm okay not speaking German. I guess it'd
I
be
don't
cool, but
I think it would just be cool to be fluent in another language. It doesn't have to be German. But AMUS is a German publication that does so much great F1 reporting. AMUS is reporting that the FIA has approved 2 bids for new teams. The interesting thing, though, is that doesn't mean they get to race. So, some foundation here before we get into discussing. It's reported by AMUS that there were 4 applicants who officially applied to the FIA's new team process. The Andretti bid, that I think we've all heard plenty about. Hitech, I've heard it said both ways, I don't know, which is a team notable for being connected to the Mazepan family and Russian money, but allegedly they're not connected to any Russian money anymore, but a lot of people don't believe that. I'm just going to leave an asterisk there, is all I'm telling you. But formally, there's no connection to Russian money there or the Mazepans. Then there's a project called Lucky Sun, which is by a wealthy Hong Kong Chinese and billionaire. And then there is Rodin Motorsport, which is connected to Australian billionaire David Dicker, who made his fortune by distributing computer hardware and software. Now, all of these, the answer is they're going to be connected to a billionaire, just so we're clear, because... And we want them to be, weirdly, because you need enough money to invest and actually be competitive, so we are talking billions. So those are the 4 teams that applied. The rumor is I'm just going to go with Hitech from here on out, but that the Hitech Grand Prix and the Andretti Autosport bids were approved by the FIA, and that the FIA will be announcing that soon. So what is holding up the announcement is that technically Formula One management, which is the management side of Formula One, that's what Liberty Media owns, has a veto right. And Liberty Media and the teams have all said, we don't want new teams. So they've kind of dug their heels in. And what AMUS discusses throughout the article and what they're reporting on is essentially we have a political war here where Mohammed, who is the head of the FIA, is being quoted as he wants to show his strength. I was going to say that in a much more inappropriate way. And he thinks that he can strong arm the FOM, and he wants to show the FOM who's boss, essentially, by announcing new teams and forcing FOM and Liberty and the teams to have to just accept it. The FOM and the teams are saying, no, you are not going to do that. I love describing really serious matters as if it's just 2 girls fighting in a teenage bathroom. So that is the summary of what is going on here. Is we have a political battle playing out behind the scenes where Liberty and the teams don't want new teams, and the FIA is trying to show their strength and power and force new teams onto the grid. So Nicole, how do you see this playing out? And that's a lot I just threw at you and the listening audience. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling just a whole lot of things. My initial response when reading this translated article was going to be like, FLM and the teams have made it so abundantly clear that not only do they currently feel like they cannot have more teams be joining the grid, but they need more than just like, okay, they have the cash. They have the whatever teams that are joining are coming in being, like you said, all of them are going to be backed by a billionaire, because it's like you cannot be part of that conversation without coming in with a money figure like that. But even if you're coming in with a money figure like that, like how much is that person going to be continuously pouring money into this? Because as we have recently seen, Alpine being roughly under $1 billion, and they're not necessarily like right behind Red Bull. So if we want to just look at like that cost alone, it's not going to be like this new team's going to be suddenly up in the front running next to Max Verstappen. So it definitely does feel like it's a little bit more of a show all your cards, like I'm all in ego move from the FIA at this point in time. because nothing else has come out unless it's just not public knowledge, which it really must, could be, of what was pitched behind the scenes. What are these teams coming in with and everything like that could maybe,
Make it feel more beneficial.
make the teams and FOM feel better about their concerns about not only splitting the pot of money or just, being able to know that these teams are coming in for the benefit of the sport and making it more lucrative and not just because they're like going in for a cash grab or something silly like that. I don't know. It doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah. Gosh, my brain is in 7 different places. But I'm realizing something I forgot to say at the beginning is the reason why the FIA can approve them, but FOM also has to approve them, is there's this thing called the Concord Agreement, which is how they decide to split the money. So technically if I'm understanding the complicated regulations and rules I'm reading correctly, let me add that asterisk. I tried really hard to understand fully, but basically what I think it means is that the FIA can approve these teams to be on the grid and race, but unless the FOM and the teams let them into the Concord Agreement, they are racing but don't get to split the pot of money.
So hypothetically speaking, let's say, Andretti races, and if FOM vetoes, is Andretti then able to race? And let's say they, in like a magical world, finish 4th in the constructors, like, does like money just
no payout
over? Like, is it just like boop, boop, boop?
So I don't think they would ever let it get to that place.
Right.
I'm being honest.
I mean, that would be bizarre.
Wild. Yeah. And I guess it would be wild, but we would never see it because this all technically is behind the scenes anyway. I think Liberty technically has a veto on, like, they can't veto the FIA approving any teams, but they can veto who the teams are. So there could be a way where Liberty Media says, oh, I'm totally fine. And I keep saying Liberty Media, but it's really Formula One management. So Formula One management could get around this also by saying, hey, we don't like the teams you picked, so we're going to veto the teams. And then the FIA is like, but you vetoed all the teams. And then it's like, oh, well. But so much of this is like interpersonal dynamics and relationships. So I think a lot of this reporting from this article and other things we're seeing is leaks of what's coming out. I don't really personally care if F1 teams make more money or not. That is not of personal interest to me. And I know a hang-up on a lot of this is that they don't think a $200 million buy-in to the Concord Agreement is enough money, and that they want that to be larger. And so that part I really don't care about. I mentally chuck that out. I'm like, who cares? But the part I do personally as a fan care about is I don't think more is more.
Yeah.
Like, we have 20 drivers and 10 teams, and we've had one team win every race this season. We've had one driver win all but 2 races. Throwing 2 new teams with 0 infrastructure and having to invest billions of dollars to just get to a level of Williams, that's not more entertaining. That's not going to improve my Sundays. That's not going to make F1 a more exciting product for me. The only benefit is that means there's more drivers on the grid, but that's never been me personally as an F1 viewer. That is not something that I feel particularly passionate about in any way. Like, I don't think 4 more drivers, but I also really acknowledge the fan experience and what people are talking about when they say they want that. I think, cool, that sounds great. Like, if you want more drivers, there are definitely drivers I wish had seats, but I don't think what's preventing them from having seats, like, I would love that if Colton Herta right now was in that AlphaTauri seat like he was supposed to be. But what is preventing him from that is not more teams. He still doesn't have the super license points, even if Andretti gets a team. Guess what's preventing that? The FIA. So, like, to me, there's like a lot of like, oh, well, there's all these drivers, we want seats. And it's like, yeah, me too. The issue is the FIA. It's not the lack of teams. So
what a surprise. It all goes back to the FIA.
And I want to be very clear. I mean, the FIA leadership, I know there's a lot of really good people working for the FIA just trying to do their jobs and are not in decision-making positions right now for the things we're
not
talking
saying
about.
every single person at the FIA, but
No,
you
no,
know
no.
who you are.
Yeah, so I think what's going to happen is we are going to get these 2 new teams on the grid. But I am very interested to see what the FIA ends up having to give up in order to make this quote-unquote win they're looking for happen.
To your point earlier about how teams are just not doing a good job of getting fans on their side, it so feels like this topic is happening in a way that's like back burner to teams. Like, it feels like there's so much happening internally in the season that it feels like every so often we'll get like a side comment from a team principal or someone on some type of staff, and it's not really like a formulated, like, here's really where we all stand on this. Like, here's
our
a comment
cohesive strategy.
Someone asked us about this. So I think that's so spot on. If the teams could continue to get together in a way and vocalize like a stance about why they feel like this could not be beneficial for the sport overall, and not just in the sense of, because I also don't care if, teams have more, whatever, they're all breaking up and getting lots of money in F1. That's not brand new news to absolutely anyone at all. But just for the quality of the sport, and not talking again, we're not talking about in terms of financials here. So it's literal
for us as viewers,
for us, and how we. And as you acknowledge, there's some people that want to see more drivers, but acknowledging how we as F1 fans like to watch F1 races and what we would hope to see it to be now. Like, I would love for it not to be like a haha joke for Haas to be in a P3 starting position or any sort of type of thing and be competing, and then eventually fall back and it just be like a DNF situation. Like, to have... Right. I just, like, haha, we love seeing Nico do things in quali and then it just like go to fire on Sundays. But for maybe it to go a little bit farther than that, like maybe to the end of the race where it's not Max, it's almost like a lap and a half ahead of everybody, would be really lovely and enhance the quality of F1 as a sport. So it would be great to see all the teams get together on a unified front to vocalize this, or else I feel like it is going to end up being some backroom shady deal. We're going to end up with 2 more teams on the grid, and FIA is going to give up something, and it's kind of going to look just really sketch. And I don't know, I just don't feel like it's necessarily going to be better. I feel like we're going to end up with more, I don't want to say more Haas's, because that feels negative. But we're going to end up with a couple tractors on the grid.
Well, we talk a lot about how we feel like we're living in the peak of F1 right now. And F1 doesn't feel like it's spiking in growth anymore. It feels like they're working well to maintain what was built. But I am intrigued. The last time F1 added new teams, I guess Haas. But then before that, they added 2 new teams and they're not on the grid anymore. Like, you wouldn't know who they are, and it doesn't work. Like, adding new teams rarely works, and it's sad that like Haas is the modern success story of, and the only reason Haas didn't collapse is because of the financial regulations that were put in place, which is our next Google Translate corner we will talk about in a moment. There's your tease. So it's a little... I'm like, what? Okay, so we're going to watch other teams drive around in the back, not be able to financially invest in this, and then maybe the sport, I don't predict the sport to always be this financially healthy. So, like, what's it going to mean then? I don't know. Just stand by more. More isn't more, always. Like, and I agree, this is definitely 100% going to come down to some backroom deal. We're probably... it's going to be months before we figure out what they gave up, but it seems clear to me that the FIA really wants this and views this as a win for them. But I'm intrigued what they will have to give up to get said win. And you know what I would like for them to give up? Having to properly steward their races. Thank you.
I mean, I hope they don't give up properly stewarding.
No. I mean, like, they'll actually have to start caring, because Liberty Media is like, hey, you're making us look bad all the time. Right. Like, there's this tension that, like, there's the tension about this, but I think this story is a tension subsidiary of the fact that FOM is like, your inability to correctly regulate and steward this sport is preventing us from making this sport not a laughingstock. Like, there's a reason that the next story we're going to get into that I won't transition to now. I will let you say words first. But
Yeah. No,
yes.
FIA is gonna be like, we'll let Lewis keep his piercing and jewelry in forever and never bring it up ever again if you let us do this. Like, it's gonna be something like silly and dumb. I don't know. I'm over it.
No, I don't think
I'm gonna-
Liberty is going to let them get away with. There's going to be some big political chip that the FIA is going to have to play. I don't know if we're ever going to know what it
better
is.
be worth it. I mean, if we see some kind of unbelievable huge change. So, look, maybe if FIA is willing to be safer and actually steward in an appropriate way,
Yeah,
I'm
have more
welcome to
teams.
the team. Sure, go for it.
Uh-huh.
If that's what it takes, wow, congratulations, you did it.
Yeah. You know
Good shit.
how I know they approved the Andretti bid, by the way? Because Michael Andretti came out and apologized for the fact that he called F1 teams greedy. So yeah, like actual reporting has confirmed it, but as soon as I saw that quote, I went, "Oh, the Andretti bid was approved."
I
He's
mean, you
apologizing.
knew that if there was any, it had, like, Andretti was gonna, like, there was gonna be so much money thrown at that had to be at least one, like, approved initially. There was no way Andretti wasn't gonna be part of that initial conversation. We've made that abundantly clear in the early episodes.
I think we're gonna have to bring back F1 Ring when this officially gets
Think
approved.
so. All of the new members of the grid and old. Oh boy. Thank you for listening to this highlight from episode 26 of Grid Walk. Don't forget to like and subscribe for a ton more F1 videos and a lot of really fun content. Also, you made it this far into this video. I think you should just check out the rest of the podcast. You can click here to watch the full thing. Ready? Click, 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 click. Ready, follow. Click, 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 click.